You lined up dead at the flag, club face square, feet parallel, everything the way you were taught, and the ball still leaked right every single time. I know that feeling. I lived it for years. Here is what I found. The best ball strikers who ever lived did not aim their club face at the target. They aimed it somewhere else entirely, somewhere close. And the trail to why started with a single sentence I almost skipped in an old book. I promise you this. By the end, I will hand you the exact method Jack Nicklaus wrote down in 1974, the one buried inside a chapter most golfers flip right past. You do not need a launch monitor. You do not need a coach. You do not need to change your swing. You already own everything this takes. Let me back up to the moment it cracked open for me. I was standing on a driving range on a cold Tuesday morning, maybe 6 years ago now. My alignment sticks were laid on the ground, perfectly parallel, the way every teacher on the internet swears you must do it. My club face pointed straight at the 200 marker, and I pushed shot after shot 10 yards right of it. An older man 2 mats down watched me for a while. He finally walked over, tapped my alignment stick with his shoe, and said 7 words I have never forgotten. He said, "You're aiming at the wrong thing, son." Then he walked back to his mat and hit a low, boring draw right at the flag without even looking at it twice. I did not know it yet, but that man had just handed me the first clue in something that would take me 2 years to fully unravel. Let me tell you what he meant, because it goes against nearly everything you have been shown. Most of us were taught a sequence. Stand behind the ball, pick your target, walk in, set the club face at the target, then build your stance around the club face. It sounds logical, it feels responsible, and it is the single biggest reason ordinary golfers aim wrong without ever knowing it. Here is the problem I discovered, and it took me embarrassingly long to see it. Your eyes lie to you. When you stand over the ball and try to point that club face at a flag 200 yards away, your brain cannot actually hold a straight line across that much distance. It just cannot. The target is too far, the angle is too flat, and your head is tilted sideways looking down at a little white ball. So your club face ends up pointing somewhere your brain guessed at. And usually it guesses right, which pushes your shot right, which then makes you swing left to save it, which slices the ball even further right. Round and round it goes. That old man at the range did not aim at the flag. He aimed at something 2 feet in front of his ball, and I had no idea, standing there that morning, that he was using a method that went back further than either of us had been alive. But before I could understand what he did, I had to figure out why almost nobody teaches it anymore. And that question sent me somewhere I did not expect. Because when something this simple, this free, and this effective disappears from the mainstream, I have learned to ask one question first. Who benefited from it being forgotten? And that question sent me somewhere I did not expect. If you want the full trail I followed, every source, every old book, every discovery laid out step by step, I put it all together in a series called First Fix, Deep Fixes, and System Complete. 3 short digital books that walk you through the exact progression I went through from that cold morning on the range all the way to a complete method you can use on every shot. Everything is linked in the description below, but knowing the method was buried did not tell me how to use it. Let me show you what I turned up, and I want you to sit with this, because it changed how I look at every golf lesson I have ever paid for. I started digging through old instruction books, not the glossy new ones. The old ones, the ones printed before television, before video, before a swing could be sliced into 40 frames and sold back to you one subscription at a time. And what struck me first was how short the old advice was. A single paragraph. A single idea. No gadgets attached. I found a copy of Harry Vardon's writing from 1905. Vardon won 6 Open Championships, more than any man in history, and his book was called The Complete Golfer. And Vardon barely talked about aiming the club face at the target at all. He talked about feel, about the line the ball would start on, about a spot on the ground. It was almost an afterthought to him, because to a man who played that many balls, it was obvious. Now, here is where it gets interesting, and here is where I started to smell something. Somewhere in the last 50 years, the advice flipped. Aiming stopped being a feel and became a product. Think about it. Every alignment stick you can buy, every laser device, every training mat with the painted lines, every app that puts a grid over your setup, every lesson package that promises to fix your alignment for $150 an hour. There is an entire industry built on the idea that aiming is complicated, technical, and something you need to keep paying to get right. And the more I looked, the more I saw the pattern. The old method cost nothing. It used only your eyes and a spot on the grass, so it could not be sold. And a method that cannot be sold has a way of quietly vanishing from the places most people learn. I am not saying anyone sat in a room and plotted to hide it. I am saying that free things get crowded out by paid things slowly until a whole generation of golfers has never even heard the simple version. And that is exactly what happened here. Because when I finally traced the simple version all the way back to its clearest source, I realized every gadget I had ever bought was just a complicated, expensive way to do something a man with a good eye could do in 2 seconds for free. But knowing the method was buried did not tell me how to use it. For that, I had to keep pulling the thread, and the next place it led me was to a book most golfers own, and almost none of them have actually read to the end. Let me tell you about the day I found the sentence that made everything click. I had ordered a used copy of Ben Hogan's 5 Lessons, The Modern Fundamentals of Golf, first published in 1957. Now, most people know that book for its grip and its swing plane, that pane of glass drawing everyone remembers. But I was not reading it for the swing, I was reading it hunting for that old man's secret. And Hogan, who many people call the greatest ball striker who ever lived, said something about the setup that stopped me cold. Hogan wrote that the correct order of setting up was not what most amateurs did. He built his stance and his aim as one connected piece, and he obsessed over the line the club face pointed on, not the distant target. To Hogan, the target was almost a distraction. The line was everything. But Hogan still did not spell out the trick in the plain language I needed. He hinted at it. He circled it. And I sat there frustrated, feeling like I was one book away from the answer. So I did something I want you to understand, because it tells you how far down this rabbit hole I had gone. I bought 7 more old golf instruction books, some of them out of print for decades, off the back shelves of a used bookstore 2 towns over. I spent maybe $40 total on the whole stack. My wife thought I had lost my mind. And in one of them, a quieter book from 1946 by a teacher named Percy Boomer called On Learning Golf, I found the bridge I was looking for. Boomer taught golf in France to some of the finest players in Europe, and he wrote about aiming as something you feel from the inside, not something you measure from the outside. He said the moment you try to aim at a target far away, you lose the feel of where your body actually wants to send the ball. And that lined up perfectly with what the old man on the range had done. He never looked at the flag while he set up. He looked at a spot right in front of his ball. So here is the clue that snapped into place for me. The distant target is the problem, not the solution. Every one of these old masters aimed at something close and let the far target take care of itself. But I still did not have the exact recipe. How close? What spot? How do you pick it? And that final piece, the one that turned all this history into something I could actually do on the course, came from the one book I had walked past 100 times, assuming I already knew what was in it. Now, before I give you that, I want to stop and talk to you directly, because I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You are thinking this sounds fine for young men with good eyes and flexible backs, or for people who can get to a range 3 times a week. And I want to pull you back in, because this is the part of my search that surprised me the most. This method is easier for us, not harder. If your eyes are not what they were at 30, If your back does not let you twist around to check your alignment, if you cannot practice as much as you used to, then aiming at a spot 2 feet in front of you is a gift. You do not have to hold a straight line across 200 yards anymore. You only have to hold a straight line across 2 feet. That is a length your eyes and your brain can actually manage, no matter your age, and you can practice the whole thing in your living room. Let me show you exactly how, because you do not need a range and you do not need to spend a dime. Take any club out of your bag. Set a ball down on the carpet or a coin or a bottle cap, it does not matter. Now pick a spot on the carpet about 2 feet in front of it, straight along the line you would want the ball to travel. A mark on the rug, a seam, a crumb, anything. Now here is the drill. Set your club face so it points squarely at that near spot, not at the far wall. Feel how much easier that is. Your eyes can actually confirm it. Then, and only then, build your stance so your feet, hips, and shoulders run parallel to that short line. Not aimed at the near spot, parallel to it, like a train track where the ball rolls on the outer rail and your toes line up along the inner rail. Do that 20 times a night for a week. No swing needed. Just the setup, over and over, until aiming at the near spot feels more natural than aiming at the far target ever did. I did this on my own living room floor for 2 weeks straight before I ever tried it on a course, and by the time I got out there, my hands knew where to go before my brain even asked. That is the whole practice, and it costs nothing but a few minutes. But it only works because of one specific detail about how you pick that spot, and that detail is the very thing the greatest golfer of the modern era wrote down in plain black and white in a book that has sold millions of copies, while almost nobody actually used the one page that mattered most. So let me finally take you to the moment the whole case closed. The book was Golf My Way by Jack Nicklaus, published in 1974. Nicklaus won 18 major championships, more than any golfer in history before or since, and by his own account, he did not aim like the rest of us. Here is what Nicklaus wrote, and this is the piece the whole trail had been pointing at. He said that before every single shot, from the biggest putt of his life to a casual range ball, he picked out an intermediate target, a spot on the ground just a few feet in front of his ball, directly on the line to where he wanted the ball to start. It could be an old divot, a discolored patch of grass, a broken tee, a leaf, a darker blade of grass, anything he could see clearly, and he aimed his club face at that. Then he simply set the face square to that spot 2 or 3 feet away and built his stance to match. Nicklaus said in plain words that it is far easier to aim at something close than at something far away. The greatest golfer alive told the entire world his secret, printed it in a book you can hold in your hands, and yet almost everyone I have ever played with still stands there squinting at a flag 200 yards off, trying to will their club face to point at it. That is the trick. That is the whole thing. Do not aim your club face at the target. Aim it at a spot 2 or 3 feet in front of your ball on the line to your target. Then let your body follow that short line. And here's why it works. Because I did not want to just take Nicklaus at his word. I tested it. I stood on that same cold range where the old man had corrected me, and I picked a broken tee about 2 feet in front of my ball. I set my club face square to that tee. I built my stance to the short line, and I stopped looking at the 200 marker completely. First swing, straight. Second swing, straight. The push, right, that had haunted me for years, gone, because I was no longer asking my eyes to do something they physically cannot do. The reason is simple once you see it. A line is defined by 2 points. Your ball is 1 point. When your second point is a spot 2 feet away, your eyes can lock that line down perfectly, and your club face sits exactly where it should. When your second point is a flag 200 yards away, the smallest error in your eye becomes a huge error at the target. A club face that is off by just 1 degree at address will send your ball more than 10 feet offline at 150 yards. 1 degree. You cannot see 1 degree pointed at a distant flag, but you can absolutely see it pointed at a spot near your feet. That is the entire secret the old man used without a word of explanation. That is what Varden felt in 1905, what Hogan circled in 1957, what Boomer described in 1946, and what Nicklaus finally spelled out in 1974. Aim close. Let fire take care of itself. And once I understood that, a second piece fell into place, one that makes this even more powerful for you, because there is an order to it, and the order matters more than anything. Watch what most golfers do. They set their feet first, get comfortable, and then twist the club face to match. That is backwards, and it is why so many aim left or right without knowing. The club face is what sends the ball. Your feet do not hit the ball. So the club face must be set first to the near spot, and your body must be built around it second. Here is the exact sequence I settled on after all this, the one I use on every shot now. Stand behind the ball first and look down the line to your target. As you do, pick your near spot, that divot or leaf or old tee, 2 to 3 feet ahead of the ball, sitting right on that line. Lock your eyes on it. Now walk in from the side. Set the bottom edge of your club face square to that near spot, not the target, the near spot. Once the face is set, and only then, slide your feet, knees, hips, and shoulders into place parallel to that short line. Take one last look, not at the flag, but at your near spot to confirm the face still points at it. Then swing. That is it. No sticks on the ground, no laser, no app, no lesson. Just your eyes and a mark on the grass that nature or the group in front of you already provided for free. And I want to be honest with you about something, because this is the part that still bothers me. I paid for years of range balls, 2 sets of alignment sticks, one of those laser gadgets that clips to your hat, and more than one lesson where a teacher stood behind me and told me my feet were open. Not one of those things fixed the real problem, because the real problem was never my feet. It was that I was asking my eyes to aim across a distance no human eye can aim across, and the fix was free, and it was printed in a book on my own shelf the whole time. Let me give you one more layer, because this is where it gets genuinely useful for the way you actually play, not just how you practice. This near spot method does something else that nobody sells you on. It quiets your mind over the ball. When you aim at a far target, part of your brain is still calculating, still doubting, still checking. Am I lined up? Am I aimed right? That doubt tightens your hands and ruins your swing. But when your club face is locked onto a spot 2 feet away that your own eyes have confirmed is on line, that doubt has nowhere to live. You know you are aimed correctly because you can see it. And a golfer who knows they are aimed correctly makes a freer, fuller swing every time. Percy Boomer understood this back in 1946 when he wrote about feel over measurement. Nicklaus understood it in 1974 when he called it the single most important part of his pre-shot routine. More important, he said, than the swing itself. The greatest winner in the history of the game told us the aim mattered more than the swing, and we spent the next 50 years buying swing lessons. Now let me answer the question I know is forming in your mind, because I asked it too. What about on the green? What about putting? The same thing. Nicklaus used a near spot for putts as well, and this may be the most useful place of all. On a putt, pick a spot just a few inches in front of your ball, an old ball mark, a slightly darker blade of grass, right on your intended line. Set your putter face square to that near spot. Roll the ball over it. You are no longer trying to aim at a hole 10 or 20 feet away and hold that line with your putter. You are aiming a few inches ahead, which your eyes can do perfectly, and the ball rolls over your spot and onto the hole. I have watched my 3 putts nearly disappear since I started doing this, and it cost me nothing. So here is the whole trail laid out end to end, the way it finally came together for me after 2 years of chasing it. It started with a stranger on a cold range who tapped my alignment stick and told me I was aiming at the wrong thing. It led me back to Harry Vardon in 1905, who treated the distant target as an afterthought. It ran through Ben Hogan in 1957, who obsessed over the line and not the flag. It passed through Percy Boomer in 1946, who taught that aiming far away kills the feel of the shot. And it ended where it should have started, with Jack Nicklaus in 1974 spelling out in plain words the exact method every one of those men used without quite explaining it. Aim your clubface at a spot 2 or 3 feet in front of your bull. Never at the target. Build your body to the short line. Let the far target take care of itself. The knowledge was never lost. It was written down over and over by the finest players who ever lived. It just got buried under an avalanche of gadgets and lessons and video breakdowns, all of them selling you a complicated answer to a problem that a broken tee on the ground solves for free. I think about that old man sometimes. I never got his name. I never saw him again. But he handed me the first thread of something that took me 2 years and $40 in used books to fully understand. And now I am handing the finished thing to you in a few minutes, so you never have to chase it the way I did. Here is what I want you to feel right now. You did not just learn a golf tip. You reclaimed something that the greatest players in history knew and that got quietly taken from ordinary golfers like us, replaced by things we had to keep paying for. That knowledge belonged to you all along. Now you have it back. And I think you are the kind of person who wants the whole trail, not just the headline. You want to know where a thing came from, who proved it, and why it works before you trust it. That is exactly the person I make these for. So let me ask you something specific, and I really want your answer. Think back to the last time you stood over a shot and aimed straight at the flag 200 yards away. Did your ball leak right, the way mine always did? Or were you one of the few who somehow found this near spot method on your own? Tell me in the comments below. Type it out, even just a sentence. I read them, and I want to know how many of you were aiming at the wrong thing all these years, just like I was. If you are the kind of person who would rather recover a free method the masters used than keep paying for the complicated version, then come with me. This channel is for people reclaiming the practical, low-cost knowledge that got quietly replaced by things designed to keep us paying. Subscribe and stay close, because the next thread I am pulling is about a forgotten way to read the grain of a green using nothing but the direction of the afternoon shadows, a trick that goes back to the old links caddies of Scotland, and once you see it, you will never misread a putt the same way again. Go find your near spot, 2 feet in front of the ball. Trust it, and watch what happens to the ball you have been fighting your whole life. I hope this helped you finally aim true. This video gave you the overview, but inside the practical wisdom circle, I walk you through the intermediate target alignment method, shot by shot, right where we left off. In there, you can ask me your own question. And a real person, me answers you myself. You're not doing this alone. Folks like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel anytime, one click.